If you're looking for a new way to support the podcast, check out Dubby.gg, an energy supplement company trying to make a difference. There, you can use code SIDEMISSION for 10% off your order. Thank you to Dubby for sponsoring this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. I, like always, am your host, Rusty Ellis, joined by the boys, Matt Beck, and finally rejoining us after his wisdom tooth surgery, Kyle Lynch. Kyle, is your mouth feeling better? I would assume so, because you're actually on this episode.
It's feeling a lot better, actually. I'm glad that the pain's finally subsided. I'm not having to choke down ibuprofen every 6 hours. I'm feeling good.
I didn't ask all that, big man. I didn't ask all that. Like,
wait
relax.
a minute, you literally just asked me.
I know.
Yeah, I'm glad
I know. People are going to hear the last couple of episodes, like the intros that I've done with me and Matt, and they're going to be like, "Damn, they hate him." They're like, "Damn, they hate this man, Kyle." I don't understand. No, of course not. It's all jokes. But today we are doing a long overdue episode because we are talking about Split Fiction, which several weeks ago when it came out, I can speak for me and Kyle because we played through the entirety of it together. We got the Platinum Trophy together. This game took over our gaming time. And I have to say, and it's something that we'll get into a little bit later, this is a formula that Hazelight, the studio that developed this game, it's a studio that, it's a genre and a type of game that I feel like they have perfected. And they've done that with Split Fiction. It's a fantastic game at face value. I think all three of us agree. We all really loved this game quite a bit for several reasons. One, because it was just fun as hell playing through it with someone else. I'm sure, Kyle, you remember one of the earlier flying sections when me and you died over and over, and we were in tears because we were laughing as much as we were. I feel like that is a good depiction of just how good this game is and how much fun this game is. So we'll go ahead and we'll jump right in. Kyle, obviously, A Way Out had a lot of success. It Takes Two, one game of the year. I feel like it goes without saying, this game, I think the expectations for this game was that it was going to be pretty good. I don't know that anybody expected it to be this good.
Yeah, I not to say that, I was doubting Hazelight, but I was not expecting this game to be one that, especially only 4 months into the year, I was going to be saying this is in my Game of the Year discussion without a doubt.
Yes.
We did
100%.
Everything in this game, because literally beating the game was mine and Rusty's final trophy. We wanted that to be our trophy that pops the platinum, because it was just so much fun. Like, literally, the story was okay. I enjoyed it for what it is, but the gameplay is what I personally think excelled here. They went above and beyond in every aspect. I cannot glaze this game enough for how much they gave attention to the different genres. Like, 1 minute you're cyber ninjas, another minute you're knights. It was just wild. The side stories were very well crafted. I could go on for a long time about why I think this game deserves a spot in the 2025 Game of the Year discussion.
Yeah, no, I think that you're 100% right. I think that I'll just go ahead and I'll come around and say it. I think that as of right now, this is probably my Game of the Year front runner. And that says a lot because I was a big fan of Avowed when me and Matt reviewed that. I've become a massive fan of Monster Hunter Wilds, and I think that that's one of the best in the series that we've seen so far. And I feel like this game does top that. It tops that bar. And obviously, we have a lot of great games that are still to come out. Obviously, Doom the Dark Ages, Elden Ring Night Reign, GTA 6 is out there in the ether. And then obviously, we also have the launch of the Switch 2 coming up, which me and Matt have secured our pre-orders. Kyle's going to secure his later today as of recording. Gives you an idea of when we're recording this episode, because I have no idea when it's going to go out. Obviously, a lot of games still to come later this year. But I don't think it's an understatement, or I don't think it's an over-exaggeration to say that this is a front runner right now. I think that this game, in every aspect, really does deliver. And Matt, I think when I was describing this game to somebody else and why I think they should play it, the number one word that I felt like I kept saying was creative, was creativity. I felt like this game had that in spades because it felt like, sure, some of the levels you did do a lot of the same things, but it felt like from chapter to chapter, from level to level, from side story to side story, it did feel like at every turn, none of them really felt the same. It felt like it was always introducing something new, something fresh into the fold. And I really liked that. I think that was one of the biggest strengths of this game, along with the core gameplay, was the fact that it managed to, for the entirety of Kyle and I's 12, 13-hour playthrough, it managed to stay fresh the entire time, and I never felt bored.
Yeah, and honestly, when I was playing this game through and through, like it just hit me. It's like, this is what happens when you just give developers the open freedom. You're not trying to push a specific type of narrative. It's just, this is a love letter to video games, as we've seen the different types of genres that they go through. And I mean, honestly, they stick with just kind of the theme of sci-fi and the more medieval types or the more fantasy types, which are like, the most popular type of genres especially when it comes to, books. And that's what these two characters do. They're writers. That's why they're in this situation. And like, there's just not a single moment that I felt like I'm doing something that I already did previously. Everything is just completely different. Like, even like one thing that just blew my mind was how they utilized the split between the camera, the characters, and sometimes you would have characters who are specifically in that sci-fi world, and then the other one, Zoe, she's in her fantasy world, but you are playing at the same time, and you're seeing things differently, even though the basic setup is the exact same. Like, for example, there's a giant crane that Mio has to control, but in Zoe's world, it looks more like, a giant tree with vines. Like, I thought that was so freaking sick, and like, the little touches that they put in the game, like, even like, there are so many moments where I thought that this was something that I should do and I would unlock a trophy, so I was pleasantly surprised when it wasn't. I mean, and you even have moments where you play as pigs in this game. Like, they didn't run ideas here. They did not run out of ideas. I love the fact that there was even a level where you get baby dragons, and as you progress through the level, they get bigger, even to the point where you can ride them. Like,
love that.
It was amazing. This is the kind of game that I definitely see myself going back and playing eventually. Because you two got the trophies, I did not. I'm gonna have to find somebody who actually wants to take the time with me to find all the trophies.
I'm pretty sure Rusty will too.
I'm about to say, honestly, it's not a hard platinum, and I think that there's this misconception when it comes to platinums that they have to be super grindy or super difficult, and that's really not the case. Like, now, don't get me wrong. There were parts of this platinum that when Kyle and we were doing it, there were parts of it that we were like, oh my God, we're having to grit our teeth a little bit here to do this. Like, one of them is the phone minigame when you're escaping in one of the sci-fi levels, and the player that's playing as Zoe has to unlock this phone and deactivate this bomb, and you have to be pretty pinpoint perfect with it. You really can't afford to make any mistakes or take that many seconds too long. You're not really afforded a lot of extra time. And it's certainly, again, there's a little bit of a difficulty spike when it comes to getting a trophy like that. The other one was the bomb minigame, completing the entire game show without the bomb exploding.
Oh, that was awesome. I love that.
That really is. It's one of those that when you play through it and you're not focused on trying to do it without the bomb exploding and you're not trying to go for the trophy, it's such a really well-designed side story that the deaths are almost just as funny and just as rewarding as the moment when you actually beat it. And that's, I think, really, really praiseworthy here. Is I think that it's really impressive that even in failure, you don't really find yourself getting mad. You find yourself laughing at it a little bit. So I do think that, again, it all goes back to like the variety of the gameplay here. I feel like is a standout feature in this game. The plot, like Kyle said, it's not groundbreaking by any means. Like, this is not a game you're going to play. By the end, you're going to be like, oh man, that story is one of the greatest. Like, this isn't Red Dead Redemption 2. This isn't The Last of Us. This isn't a game like that where you're going to get to the end of the story and be like, man, what just a work of art that was. You're not going to get to the end of it and feel like that. But I will say, the story is pretty good. It's for something that could have taken the back seat to all of this. I was really pleased with it. You play obviously as two separate characters, as Mio and Zoe. Mio is more of a sci-fi writer. Zoe is more of a medieval fantasy writer in that aspect. And I think, Kyle, what really stuck out about both of these characters is they go out of their ways to feel different. They go out of their ways to be completely contrasting characters. Mio is more of that hardened, more cynical character who kind of just takes life as it is. And Zoe is more of that optimistic, everything is bright and cheery kind of character. And they really are polar opposites. But what I feel like the story did really well was that by the end of it, you feel like both of them experience a fair amount of growth in whether that's dealing with personal trauma, dealing with personal guilt, dealing with the reality that they're both writers that have not been published before, and that the whole premise of the story starts by them going to this big publishing company, and the CEO in charge has designed this machine to steal ideas from writers because they haven't really had a successful book or a successful series in recent time in this world. I feel like we see a lot of character growth, and for me, the story around those two is a lot better than any of the story that I think we see in the overworld, in like the overarching narrative of they're trying to escape this machine. I feel like the character growth that we see, Kyle, is the driving force behind this narrative.
100%. And I gotta be honest, at the beginning, I actually thought that Zoe was kind of annoying.
Yes,
and
I agree, and I played as Zoe.
Yeah, I think that was by design. And Mio was kind of bitchy. But they both really opened up by the end. They started to actually become friends. They did not like each other for quite a bit of this game. And then, you saw them kind of start to build this friendship. And by the end of the game, they're inseparable. I really do think, like you said, that the character progression is one of the driving forces for this game. Like, it was just very, I think, refreshing to see in such a short amount of time, because we platinumed this game in less than 20 hours. This is not a very long game, but like we said with Spider-Man 2, not every game needs to be 60, 80 hours. Rusty said this is his fucking, front runner for Game of the Year, and we platinumed it in less than 20 hours. This game is quality, and
yes,
it's hard to write characters that the players, I'm assuming, are not supposed to like in the beginning, because neither of them are really that likable. One of them's annoying, one of them's just, kind of standoffish. And they not only, grow into each other, but you grow into the characters. You find yourself loving the characters as they go on. And I honestly cared a lot more about them than I did the overarching story as well.
Yeah, and I do think that is one of the biggest critiques, is that the overarching story of them escaping the machine is not really all that compelling. Like, it's okay. Again, it's what you said exactly at the beginning of this, Kyle, is that it's an okay story. That part of it is. But the character growth and the character narrative that we see for both Mio and Zoe is just fantastic. With Mio, in Mio's case, like we mentioned, she does come off very standoffish at first, and you find out that a lot of that is because of events that happened with her father. And that she felt like, in a world that was as bad as it was, her father, that was a good human being that took care of his family, he did not deserve the hand that he was dealt. He did not deserve to get sick and to pass away and to have his life cut short. He didn't deserve that, and therefore she kind of carried a lot of that bitterness towards the world with her. As Matt rejoins, his laptop died. We'll give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain there. Matt has not been here for the last 3 or 4 minutes of this episode, but he's back now, and we're all good. But back on it, Mio, we see her kind of open up and kind of develop that optimism more as the story moves along. In Zoe's perspective, and I felt like this was one of the best parts of the story, we get hints here and there that she's got this twin sister that she's really close with. And that's kind of what we're fed at first, is she's got this twin sister. They're very, very close. And then it turns out well, she actually is no longer alive. She passed away at some point when the girls were younger. And then it's opened up even further in the later levels when you find out that Zoe feels responsible for her death because she was supposed to watch her. She didn't. She ended up drowning, and that is guilt that she's carried with her for her entire life. So, again, it's this character growth, this character development that I feel like carries this game quite a bit. And Matt, I'll let you unmute and you can go ahead and talk about it a little bit as well, because Kyle and I just got done talking about it in depth of the overarching story of trying to escape the machine might not be very compelling at face value, but what we see character growth wise ultimately is one of the best parts of this game.
Yeah, that's honestly, to me, that was where the strongest part of the narrative hit, is the fact that we get to know these characters' backstories and as we progress throughout the game. And honestly, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting it to be as sad and depressing, especially with Zoe, because honestly, I didn't imagine that because of the fact that, you know, she was just so happy-go-lucky and you know what I mean? She's so positive. But it's like you said, she actually has a really dark story behind it all. And then, you know, with Mio, the stuff about her father and, you know, the type of stuff that she's gotten into with, like, you know, stealing and she got arrested at one point in her life. Like, I like the way that it plays out and really gives more reasoning as to, like, why Mio is more into sci-fi and why Zoe is more into fantasy. Because it, based off of, like, their real life experiences, it really matches, like, their personalities and, like, the life experiences that they've gone through growing up.
I think that as someone that has written quite a bit in his life, I think that there's a lot that I appreciate about this story, because in everything that a writer writes, they will put a little bit of themselves. And that's the case whether you're writing for a video game, a movie, or a book. You put at least a little bit of yourself in that, and I love that that's a very central theme in every world they go to. You both mentioned how much you loved the dragon level, and I thought that was one of the best levels in the game. I loved the idea that, you know, Zoe has written this story, and the two dragons symbolize her and her sister, and it symbolizes the life that they didn't get to live because of her sister's passing. It symbols a life where it was those two against the world. They're the dragons are the last of their kind, and you have to ultimately defeat this gigantic dragon that, more or less, again, I think it symbolizes Zoe's guilt in all of it. The character story here ultimately is a story of two people processing grief in what looks like very, very different ways, but they're ultimately very similar. They're both pushing down that pain a lot. They're not trying to process it, not trying to deal with it. One is more angry at the world, and one tries to live an optimistic life where they don't have to process that. And I felt like the story, that part of the story, I felt like was, again, fantastic. And in terms of character growth, it's some of the best that we've seen in gaming really in the last couple of years. I think ever since really a year like 2022 where we had God of War Ragnarok and we had Elden Ring and we had games like that were coming out, this was a game that made me think a lot, and I really loved that because I really hadn't felt that way a lot. Last year, you know, I had it somewhat with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I don't think I had it to this extent, though. So, Kyle, now, let's talk about the best level in the game. Let's talk about the level where you got to play as pigs and then got turned into hot dogs, because, oh my God, whoever came up with that, you are a madman, and I loved it.
That was wild. Like, the whole time, it's so cheery and happy, and, like, you know, you're just playing as these pigs that have these weird powers. And I thought the level was pretty goofy. There's a whole bunch of crazy visuals in this game, especially in the side missions, and this was one of them. It's like just the environment alone made me want to explore and see all the wacky shit that was going on. But the very end, when you go down this slide, and they slide you right into a meat grinder, and you come out as hot dogs, and you have to actually grill yourself, and then put mustard and ketchup on you and go get in the bun, so that way you get eaten. This is some child's introduction to how hot dogs are made.
This is a child. This is a villain origin story, is what this is. Like,
literally.
could you imagine? Could you imagine being a kid and like playing through this and like how much that probably like that? That's nightmare fuel for like younger kids that are playing this for the first time.
Dude, it really is. And I gotta say, the references to other video games in this was awesome. I love when games pay tribute to other, like really popular games. Obviously, there were a lot of the side missions that were directly based off of, certain games. But there were also things that weren't even related to trophies, side missions, or anything. They were just Easter eggs. I am very curious to go through the game and see which other ones I can find, because one of the only ones Rusty and I found during our playthrough was a fucking bonfire.
That was awesome. I loved that.
Dude, that was so cool. And it wasn't related to a trophy. It wasn't related to a side mission or anything to do with the story. It was completely on its own. And I bet you there are a lot more Easter eggs like that. And I was just so happy to see that, because I was like, this is clearly just them saying, we love the FromSoft games.
Yes.
I enjoy that. There's a lot of references to games throughout this game, and some people find it cheeky, some people might not like. I think it's cool. I especially like when a game doesn't take itself too seriously. This is one of those games that can absolutely give you some of that tongue-in-cheek humor, and then flip the script and have you just in your emotions with the next story beat. They really knocked it out of the park. If I were to give this game an honest review, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10.
Dude, I'm borderline close to giving it a 10.
It's really hard. I mean, like, if we gave points, it'd be a 9.5.
Like, I think 9.5 is, like, correct. I think that's a very correct score. Like, I look at this game and I'm like, this is normally the part of the episode where if you've listened to us for a long time, I go, all right, well, what are our critiques? But to be honest, I think all three of us are probably in agreement. The biggest issue that I think we had, and I'm putting heavy air quotes around issue, the overarching narrative of them escaping the machine is not amazing. It's not groundbreaking, but it's far from bad. Like, it's far from being a bad story. Like, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's good, it's solid, it does the job. But like, when I think of like a gameplay aspect, like you mentioned the references, like the moonfire, the moon, or the cool. Whatever, like, that was just so cool, because again, they could have just had the characters sit at it and been like, all right, let's take a break here, let's rest here for a second. But they decided to put like the entire like Moonfire lit message in there. Clearly a nod to the bonfire lit message from the Souls games. Like, they made an effort to put that in there, and it didn't have to be a trophy. It didn't have to be anything. It was fun. There's a reference to Solid Snake at one point from the Metal Gear Solid games in one of the later levels. There's references to A Way Out and It Takes Two. Hazelight's two other big games that they've done. Like, they didn't, like, and some of these are trophy related. Some of them are like that. Like, there's one for Portal as well, Kyle, that we talked about. There's a Portal reference where you have to find the cake from the end of, I believe it's the first Portal game, where you get to the end and you're given this cake because it's your character's birthday, I think. And Portal fans, if you're listening and that's incorrect, I apologize. But nonetheless, like, some of them are trophy related, but I felt like the best ones didn't need a trophy to be high quality references, and I love that. Like, it's some of those moments that you're playing through it, and as a gamer, it just brings a smile to your face. It's just a lot of fun, and I feel like that's one of the biggest strengths with this game. So much so that, Matt, I'll let you end us on this. I don't know if you had any other critiques, but I feel like we've covered everything here. I feel like Hazelight has done such a good job here that I almost don't know if I want them to do another co-op game. I feel like they perfected the formula here, and I don't feel like it's possible for them to top this. I think I'd almost rather see them branch out and do something different, and I would trust them to do something different because of how good this game is. I kind of want this to be the last co-op game that we see from them for a while.
And I can completely get that because I mean I do recall back after It Takes Two came out, a lot of people were talking about how this right here is like peak co-op gaming. But then this game just kind of came out of nowhere. I believe it was announced at the Video Game Awards last year, and the first time watching that trailer, like I knew we were in for something special because Hazelight has, they've created games that we don't see ever outside of from other studios. Like this is really one of the first development companies who actually take the time and give us these amazing adventure couch co-op games to play with our friends and family and our either on the couch next to each other or online. Because it's unfortunate how so many companies you take Halo for example. It is known for its its split screen couch co-op, but it's they've taken that away now. But I'm glad that we have Hazelight keeping that type of genre alive, especially when we got It Takes Two out of that, because I don't think we'll ever see another game like this from another company. And even if Hazelight decides that they want to make a sequel, or if they, the next game that they make is co-op, I think it's going to be absolutely almost impossible to make a game that is as fantastic, that is as creative, that is as, genre bending as Split Fiction. I would like for them to try because I think that they're amazing. And the lead director, I think his name is like Jose or Joseph or something. Joseph.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that starred in A Way Out. Yeah, Joseph. Joseph. I think it's Joseph Fares. Yeah. I think that's who you're thinking of. Yes.
I enjoy watching his interviews because that man has so much charisma, especially when he's talking to Jeff. And I remember way back when he said "fuck the Oscars," I was like, okay, this guy is awesome. He doesn't care, and I just love the fact that he loves video games so much, and you could tell playing this game that he has so much love and respect for so many different companies, for so many different types of games, and it shows. That's why I say I don't think we're ever going to see anything like Split Fiction again.
I 100% agree. I think that's the best way to say it, and it's the number one thing I've thought ever since we finished this game was this feels like a video game that was made by people that love video games. And as much as I think over the last couple of years, I think all three of us, we've done this podcast for long enough that I think we're all very happy with a lot of things that have come out in this industry. It is somewhat exceedingly rare that a game like this gets put out and the first thing you think is, man, these developers love what they do. They absolutely, they have a blast with what they do. They have a passion for it. They have a desire to put out something that is high quality. And Kyle, you said it, and I really think that this is true. It's proof that not every masterpiece needs to be 70 hours long. It's proof that not every fantastic game that takes you on a wild ride, it doesn't have to take you a year to complete it. It doesn't have to take you hours of dedication to beat. It can be a shorter game and still leave a lasting impact on you. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you can say in support of this game is it's a short game, but man, when you're playing it, it makes its impact on you.
I agree 100%. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
I just wanted to add the fact that, I also appreciate the fact that we got a game like this in this industry that is just constantly laying off people. I think that this is just a beacon in the dark that has been this industry these past few years.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this game, like I said, it's pure joy from beginning to end. The story, it might entice you, might not, but play this game for the gameplay because you will not be let down, no matter what kind of game you like. Doesn't matter. Fighting games, racing games, combat games, everything is in here. I struggle to find, like you guys said, a way for them to really push the envelope more than this. I feel like this is peak. If they find a way to do it, I'll be mind blown. But I think this is the best co-op game they could make.
Yeah, I think that the simple way to say it is they peaked. They peaked here, and again, it's why I've said I would love to see this studio maybe branch out and try something different. Maybe it's a single-player game. Maybe it's a multiplayer game in a different way than what their last three have been. But you can feel how you wanted about a game like It Takes Two. I personally did not think it was Game of the Year quality. I don't think any of the three of us felt that way, that it should have won Game of the Year when it did. But Hazelights 3 for 3. They've released 3 games like this that have gotten a lot of mainstream attention, and all 3 of them have been massive successes. When you look at A Way Out, It Takes Two, level, because again, you see that they care, you see they love it, and that as gamers is something I think we can all appreciate. Speaking of that being something we can appreciate, it really makes me also even more excited for Expedition 33 because it comes out tomorrow, because that was a very, very small development team. I believe 30 people worked on that game, and a lot of the same things are being said about Expedition 33. So I'm excited to play that as well. But Split Fiction, if this episode does not convince you to give this game a try, to find somebody that either has played it or hadn't played it to play it with you, I mean, hell, just like with the other 2 games, you only have to buy 1 copy, and then somebody else gets their free friend copy that they can play with you. So if that doesn't convince you enough to buy it, I don't think anything will. It's a fantastic game that I am very hopeful, if the Game Awards continue doing what they did last year and they continue improving like they did from 2023 to 2024, in December, we need to be talking about this game as a Game of the Year finalist. It's that simple. It needs to be a Game of the Year finalist this year. This game was amazing, and I think that everything we've said so far supports that fact. So that is going to do it for this episode of Side Mission. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at Side Mission Pod. You can follow us on Facebook as well at Side Mission Podcast. For the boys, for Kyle, for Matt, I'm Rusty. Thanks for listening.